issue of responsibility. The recording, okay. Of course, issues of responsibility of AI are increasingly being important, and there is a lot of discussions nowadays about it. It has not always been the case. It's something which is becoming more and more urgent and more evident now that AI systems really are out there in the world, if you want, and they are really making impact, positive and also, unfortunately, negative impact in our world. We have seen, of course, many developments, many positive developments. It seems that there is no area of society or no industrial sector in which AI is not been impacting and changing things to the better in many cases. But at the same time, we also are increasingly aware that the systems that we develop come not without costs, computational costs, energy costs, but also societal costs in terms of the disinformation, the bias, the lack of security, the lack of privacy, all kinds of important social and ethical principles that are sometimes impacted by this type of systems. And the whole idea of responsible AI is try to recognize, identify, and also to address this type of problems without keeping track and keeping lose the idea that AI can and should be employed for the good and in a positive way as much as possible. Question also that comes more and more is the question of what is AI? We see this question becoming really very real and very determining now that organizations and institutions such as the European Union is creating regulation for AI, and therefore if they are regulating, they need to understand what they are regulating. So the discussion of what is AI, what is not AI, is a discussion which is, if anything, more present now than ever. It is a difficult one to answer. It depends a lot on the perspective, the context, the objectives, how people have been defining AI, and it has kind of a bit changed along the time, but it's someone see AI as being a technology, some others see AI much more as a field of science, the field of science in which, such as biology or computer science or economics, in which the focus of this field is to try to understand human intelligence by building computational models of intelligence that can tell us something about what is intelligence, how do we deal with intelligence, how do we implement it, and so on. But if you look at the media or at some of the talks in general in the world, it's sometimes difficult to understand what is the difference between AI and magic. So we do need to be aware of this difference and to be aware of what we want to address with AI. But more important than trying to define AI, I think it's very important to realize that AI systems are not alone. They don't exist in a vacuum. And therefore, if we are talking about regulating AI, if we are talking about responsible development and use of AI, if we are talking about the ethics of using and the ethics of AI applications, we need to address the social technical system in which AI systems exist. This includes, of course, those that the companies and the people that develop them, that research these systems, that regulate and govern these systems, that deploy the systems, that own the systems, that use the systems. All of these stakeholders, all of these organizations and people are part of the social technical ecosystem of AI systems. And when we talk about regulation, when we talk about responsibility, we are and we need to be addressing this ecosystem and not the pieces of software, the AI programs, applications by themselves. It is also important to realize that as we identify the problems and the negative implications of the technology, we also need to be aware that it is not possible to fix all these problems by fixing the technology alone. A lot of the addressing and improving on the problems that we are identifying on AI will pass and will demand changes in society, changes in organizations, changes in regulations, changes in processes, and so on, and not only try to fix it, to fix the technology and hope that by fixing the technology, we are addressing all the problems that come with it. So if the question is sometimes not so much what is AI in itself, but it's much more the question of what do we want AI to be? And here the fundamental aspect of this question is we. Who are we and how are we, those organizations, those people, those of us, addressing this type of issue? And there are many possibilities to consider possible interpretations or possible understandings of AI. So do we want AI to be human-like? And there is a lot of discussion around this, the idea that AI might someday become conscious, or that AI systems are going to be indistinguishable from people. We'll talk and we'll interact with an AI system without even being able to understand that we are talking to these systems. But what does it mean? What do we mean when we say that we want a system to be human-like? And also, as important, why do we want these systems to be human-like? What are the kind of functionalities, what kind of affordances do we really need to have to require that the system is human-like? Because the problem is, or the other side of the coin is that people will be, if the systems are indistinguishable from people, then it will be very easy to not be able to understand whether you are dealing with an AI system or you are talking with a person. Another issue to consider is the idea, do we want AI to be tools? And this is in the area of responsible AI, very much the kind of desired understanding of AI. It should be a tool. It should be some artifact that helps us in improving, in changing our capabilities, in improving our capabilities, but it is a tool. Being a tool, again, we have to start asking, what is this tool for? What is this tool going to do? And who is going to be able to use this tool? Not all tools and all artifacts are designed, and as being designed means that they will come with affordances and with things that it facilitates, and also things that it makes it difficult. So we do need to ask ourselves, what for is this tool and who is going to use this tool? And things, not all tools are easily used by all of us. I'm left-handed, and as any left-handed person can tell you, it is extremely difficult for a left-handed person to use a scissors. The scissors are not made to be used with your left hand. And that limits or puts some restrictions in the way that some of us can or not use that simple tool as a scissors. Another question that many ask, or that is important to consider, is the question of the simulation, building AI systems to simulate our environment, to simulate intelligence, to simulate interactions between people. It means that we are kind of deciding how those interactions, how those designs look like, and then we need again to understand what are the consequences and the challenges here. But finally, and as important or more important than all these questions, is the question of, do we want AI systems to be normative or to be descriptive? Do we want AI systems to do as we would wish the world to be, or do we want AI systems to do as the world is now? So do we want them to do as we say or to do as we do? And this is completely different. So if systems are replicating, are describing our own environment as they are, of course, it's not strange that these systems will replicate issues of discrimination, issues of bias, issues of prejudice, because that's how our world war is, how we work, and therefore we will reproduce those in the systems. If we want the systems to be normative and to improve, hopefully, on the situations, under the contexts in which they are going to be used, who is going to set these norms? What are the rules and the norms of behavior that should be implemented, and who is going to decide on that? It is also important to realize that as impressive as these systems are, and all of us, independently of you know a lot about AI or not, have been very impressed in the last few months even about the possibilities that are able, that systems, generative systems like, for instance, ChatGPT or other large language models, the abilities and the capabilities of those systems are impressive, but still we have to be aware that AI systems are not intelligent in the way that people are intelligent. AI systems function mostly by correlation, by finding patterns and extrapolating these patterns in huge amount of data. And our mind, our own intelligence, if you want, is not so much about correlations and brute correlations in a brute force in a lot of data points, but much more able and leading to create some meaningful explanations of what we are seeing. We are also able of constraining the possibilities of what we see or what we think should be done or should not be done based on moral thinking and other possibilities. We are also able to operate with very, very small amounts of information. And what we see in AI systems is not only because of these models and these methods of correlation, that it's very, very difficult for the system to be able to distinguish between possible and impossible. And therefore the systems are, and they are not really designed to change, to make this difference. We see this, what people are starting to calling the hallucination of large language models. It's because this is not part of what the possibilities are there. If you can make the correlation, if the system can make the correlation, then all correlations are equally possible, correlating equally, and whether some things are impossible in real life is much more difficult to address. But understanding that AI is not intelligence needs to go hand in hand with understanding that AI is an artifact. It's an artifact that is not fully artificial. We do need to have people to give it a purpose and to put in the labor for tagging the data or to checking the data and the results and so on. But it is an artifact, and as an artifact is subject to a design, an engineering process through which people at many different stages of this process will determine in one way or another how the system is. So we also need to start thinking about what are the choices that people during the design and development of these systems are making, what is leading those choices, and how can we be transparent about who is making the choices and which choices are being made. Sorry, I do see, sorry, my system went black for a minute, but let's continue. We do need to address human responsibility. Good AI that is beneficial and relevant and important to pursue, really implies that we take that people and organizations take the responsibility for these systems. There is a lot that we know that can go wrong with these systems. In some cases, we do have some type of solutions to deal with this type of issues, but we know that these are inherent problems of the type of systems that we are using that are basically and predominantly based on the big data, huge amount of data, and data-driven models. We know that these systems are very easy to lead to bias and discrimination if the data that we have is not representative of the context in which it's going to be used. Of course, things will be deviating to one way or another. We also know that these systems, by the nature of how they are built, are also very easy to trick or to maliciously attack in order to start believing things which are not there. By changing one pixel on those pictures of the medical images there, you can very quickly, with 1 or 2 pixels, make the system believe something completely different than what is actually there, and we people are very good able to, or we are not even able to see the difference between the top and the bottom row of pictures, because it's only 1 pixel, so we can work around that. We also know that systems can very easily misinterpret reality if it just comes a little bit outside of the training data that was used. And if you don't train image recognition systems for the self-driving cars to know that stop signs might have stickers on them, then the system will very quickly make very strange type of associations or correlations between that. And also, it's important to realize that by aggregating the wisdom of the crowd, so by aggregating the opinions of a billion people, we are not necessarily reaching the same type of results than what we would do when we talk or take the opinions of experts. So we cannot really replace expertise with the opinions and the aggregated opinions of a lot of people. So we know all this, and people developing and using these systems and researching these systems, they all know these things. Still, we believe that by using AI technology and AI applications, a lot of benefits can come. But then by knowing this, we also know that we are responsible for the use and the consequences of these systems. And it comes with a lot of concerns, and depending with you talk earlier, different types of concerns. But basically, these concerns can be aggregated in 3 main types of topics. Concerns about data, about the really needing to understand that reality is more than data, that by replacing people and replacing society by the data that we have about them, we are in a way kind of commodifying our understanding of humanity, with all the problems that might come with it. We also need to realize that data is not a ground matter in the world. It is something that we construct, not as exactly as we construct AI systems and other technology. We construct data. Data is built based on criteria of what are the attributes that are important, what kind of population should we be collecting data about, and by being constructed, by definition means that data is always historical and always biased, because we make these choices. We determine what type of attributes are we going to take into account, which ones are we not considering, we are not collecting information about, which groups are we addressing and which groups we are not. So we really need to start looking at that. And this comes with the concern about power. Who is developing AI? What are the motivations of those using and developing AI nowadays? Where is it coming from? From big tech in most cases. The decisions that they are taking are not necessarily aligned with the democratic accountability that should be accompanying this type of decisions that really affect society as large. And finally, we need to look at the issues of sustainability and the cost of AI, not only in terms of the energy costs or the costs in terms of resources that are needed to build these systems, but also the cost of AI in terms of the societal well-being and the dignity of the people involved in these systems. So in one end, we talk about the beneficial use of AI, what many are calling AI for good, focusing on applications that, for instance, are improving our lives and our society, are addressing the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So there is a lot of good applications that have been identified that support achieving these goals, that can also scale up the existing solutions to these goals, and can also monitor whether the Sustainable Development Goals keep being addressed in a long period. So that's one side. But these AI systems that are applied for good need to be developed in a responsible and trustable way. So we do need to trust these systems, and that's where responsible AI activities come on, is focusing on the life cycle of these systems. How do we build them? How we use them? How we govern and manage them in terms of are they aligned with the laws that they need to address? Are they aligned with ethicals and the principles, the societal principles and ethical principles that are of relevance for the context in which they are applied? And also, and as importantly, are these systems robust? Can we rely on the system? Is this technology going to work under all situations, or is it going to crash at the very best opportunity, or is it going to give us wrong advice? So in one end, we need to focus on the beneficial applications that can be improved with using AI, but we cannot forget that by developing these AI applications, we really need to take a responsible approach to it. There is a lot of work going around at national level, at international level, at organizational sector level, a lot of work going on developing strategies and guidelines to ensure exactly that the development and use of AI meets those ethical and societal principles. So there is really a lot going on in this area. All of this type of approaches, you can see if you analyze all of them, and there are many hundreds of these strategies and documents and guidelines documents, many of them, but they all address some key themes. The issue of privacy, issues of accountability, issues of safety and security, fairness, human control, responsibility, human values and human dignity are all issues that come again and again, maybe in different ways and described in different ways, but they come again and again, both at the national strategies or international strategies, but also at the level of organizations and sector level institutions. Just to give you an example, all large international organizations have published their own principles for artificial intelligence from the European Union, which I have been part of the people working on this document, but other organizations as well. And like I say, they all kind of agree on the same type of principles that need to be addressed. And in a sense, it's good because at least they all agree what needs to be addressed. It's also good that there are so many of them really concerned with putting forward these guidelines. What it becomes more complex is to realize that these documents, these guidelines, are written at a very high level of abstraction. It's sufficiently easy to say that we want AI systems to be fair and not discriminating and taking into account human values and environment and so on. It is much more difficult to determine how are we going to ensure and to operationalize this type of concepts. They are very abstract, they are very global, and there is no agreed methodology or not even no agreed understanding or what do we mean by this process, by these concepts, and how can we implement them in the systems that we are using. So that is kind of the next step, the step that we really need to address in the very currently. Responsible AI is then really about addressing these issues, but also starting with the question of when should AI applications be used? Who is going to decide that it is relevant or important or useful or beneficial to use AI in a specific context? Why are those decisions being made? How are we going to prioritize different types of values? An application built for security, but that doesn't take into account privacy. How are we balancing this type of values? Who is going to deal with the dilemmas that come from the difficulty of addressing all these values at the same time? So responsible AI starts with, many are calling the question zero, and that is the question that is not so much about how to develop AI, but also why are we going to use AI in this specific situation, and who is going to decide on that? These are, by the way, typically questions that engineers are not equipped to address. Computer scientists, developers, and software developers and other types of more technical experts are not really equipped to address this type of questions. We really need to take a much bigger, much broader multidisciplinary approach, including people from the humanities, from the social science, from the practice, the user, the stakeholders, those that are affected, and so on, in order to be able to address these questions. So responsible AI also requires a critical view on AI itself. It needs us to be able to talk about potential legal consequences of what these systems are doing, realizing that no system, current or future, exists in a legal vacuum, even if there is no specific AI laws yet, like the European Union is working on the AI Act. Already now, AI systems are subject to a lot of laws and regulations. These systems are products and therefore are subject to product liability laws, for instance. These products are dealing with data, or these systems are dealing with data, and therefore are subject to regulations such as GDPR. These products are procured, bought, sold, and interchanged between organizations, and therefore are subject to contract law and contract norms. So there is a lot already in place that makes a legal scaffolding for the development and use of AI. It's not a vacuum there. There is a lot already that we need to address. But we need to continue and to go further in laws and regulations that address specific concerns of AI, concerns such as accountability, transparency, the responsibility chain, so who is responsible for what. And at the same time, we do need also to take a critical view on the societal consequence of these systems. Are we going to accept the decisions of the systems? How are we going to deal with the direct and also the indirect consequence of this type of systems? So responsible AI is, if we try to operationalize it, to move from the, let's say, these principles and the guidelines to more concrete situation. It's about, if you take the AI system with the typical characteristics of AI system, and like I said at the beginning, understanding that the system doesn't exist by itself, but it's part of this social technical ecosystem. When we talk about responsible AI, what we do want and what we want to address is, if the system is interacting with people, we need to develop the capabilities and the possibilities for ensuring accountability for that interaction, and also for ensuring that there is a possibility to ask an account of the interaction, as an explanation of the interaction. If the systems are acting autonomously at whatever level of autonomy that you want to think about, then we need to have in this social technical ecosystem, in these organizations and people involved, we need to address the issue of responsibility. Who is going to be responsible for the decisions that the system is taking autonomously? And if the system is adapting, is changing, is learning, is moving to another, becoming other types of systems, then we need to have transparency, or at least an openness of the reasoning behind why do we want the system to adapt, what is it adapt for, what are the choices and the stakeholders involved on deciding about the adaptability and the characteristics of the system in general. This accountability, responsibility, transparency is what is being called art, the art of responsible AI. And these solutions are much more societal, much more organizational than they are necessarily technical solutions. Responsible AI at the end of the day is about being explicit about which values have been considered, how these values have been interpreted and then implemented in the functionalities of the system, being explicit about the governance principles and the governance context in which these systems are developed, and also being transparent about design choices, design options, system requirements, and make all these choices motivated and also documented for proper auditing later. A lot of this is now being, people are addressing, how are we going to do this? Can be done in many different ways. For instance, by regulation, what the European Union is doing, but also by standards or by, which are non-mandatory to follow, or what people are calling soft governance, but still are, many organizations are very willing to adhere to standards, not only to demonstrate their own due diligence and limit their liability, but also because by using standards, it will be makes it much more difficult to, much more easy to integrate between different products, between different systems, between different technologies, and so on. Other ways that organizations are addressing these issues is by establishing some internal organizational processes and internal organizational structures that will help them set and monitor their own ethical guidelines internally to the organizations. A lot of work is also being put into the development of assessment tools or tools for the monitoring and auditing of existing AI systems, and be able to say something about the trustworthiness or the reliability of these systems in a way that can be then shared with others, and can even provide some type of certification that the systems are indeed working the way they should be working. But a lot of this also all depends and comes and needs that all of us, all stakeholders, from the users to those that are affected indirectly to the ones that develop and research this type of systems, we need to be aware of the issues of responsibility, the issues of trustworthiness and accountability for what systems are doing. And that requires, therefore, a lot more of focus on the education and training of everybody. And finally, in order to address all of this, like I already said before, we really need to look at AI, at responsible AI, from a multidisciplinary perspective. Engineers alone are not going to be able to address all these issues. We really need to take into account the humanities and the social science in order to be able to provide a much deeper understanding and also a critique of the solutions that are being developed and the impact, positive or negative, of these solutions and these opportunities in terms of democracy and human rights. Thank you very much. I think we have a couple of minutes maybe for questions. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we do have time for questions. I can bring the mic to you if somebody has questions. I have to just add that there is a lot of scaremongering that has been going on, and this type of mature treatment is very important because you outline the importance of continuing with AI, and at the same time doing it with certain amount of maturity and responsibility. So thank you very much for that talk. It was very good.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.